So today we're going to be doing a sales call review from Mason. Mason's in the real estate niche and sent me over a call. We hopped on and went to review everything that goes on, and I just gave my honest feedback as to how I sell personally and how I think he can implement it and improve his sales. Da-da-da. Perfect. So you should see me now. I'm just going to quickly zip through this and then see the points as I see fit.
Just run over some things, ask you some questions, figure out where you stand. Bad.
Wow.
Awesome. How are you doing, man?
Going good, man.
Not too bad, not too bad. Yeah, so I just wanted to hop on here real quick and just run over some things, ask you some questions, figure out where you stand, and then just kind of run over our service. And if you're a good fit, we'll be able to just talk about everything, service, the structure, and everything. And then if not, we'll just.
So the first thing that I notice here is like the way the call initially rolls off, right? I'm a big believer in sales is supposed to be extremely conversational, especially at the start phase, right? Our goal is to build a lot of trust with the person. And then once we've built up the trust, because we have case studies to back up, hey, we've got results from people before. Once we include that case study, there's logically no reason for them not to close. And how this plays into what this currently is that call started off as like an interrogation of, hey, this is how we're doing this here, right? So it establishes a frame, which is not bad. It establishes a framework, which is not bad, but it's extremely logical to begin with. So it means that it's going to be a little bit harder to break off the conversation, right? The way that I would have handled this was like, hey, how's it going? Da, 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 and then ask a further on question that leads into open conversation here. So let's keep playing it.
Be able to end the meeting early and you can get back to doing whatever you're doing. Does that sound good?
Okay.
Awesome, man. So first question I just like to ask, to make sure I'm not wasting your time here on this meeting, is like, what was the main thing that caught your attention? Just to make sure you don't think this is something that it's not the main thing that caught your attention to hop on a meeting with us.
Really just seller leads. I don't really think we have struggle as far as just me and my team. I'm one of the more, so we don't really have opportunities as far as at bats and opportunities that are coming with leads. It's more or less just manpower. But I focus more on the listen. It's the seller that they're looking to sell and buy, or vice versa. So I was more or less as far as this call.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so you can see that like as later on in the call, because we opened up the conversation of like, hey, why are you here? Da da da. Now there's a very low ability for us to tell stories and build trust with this guy, right? It's from the start, I guess, kind of ruining our run up towards that big pitch at the end because we can't build rapport with this guy now, right? That's the way I see this. It's going to be a lot harder. We've opened up the conversation by saying like, hey, here's the frame here. Why are you here? What are your problems? So now we have the expectation of always delivering logic behind everything we do. So that would be like back to spending the first half of the call, the first 3/4 of the call, purely building that rapport with the person so that in the latter half of the call, we can go, hey, here's my pitch, here's the logic. But right now I would try and keep it emotional.
Awesome. And then so you mentioned your team. How do you guys go about? I'm sure you do some individual stuff, but how do you go about getting those seller leads right now?
Man, we got all kind of platforms, referral partners. One of our biggest lead sources that we get, because we're Zillow's exclusive broker partner, we just partnered with them in Open Doors, so we get a lot of listings from them because we're now part of the Zillow seller connection experience. They're pretty much coming back on the market buying homes again. So we get most of our listings, I'll say, from Zillow. We also get a lot of it from Upnest, Realty.com, and Google, as far as like the pay for release or prepaid. They pretty much take the cut on the back end when it closes. And referral partners, yeah. I mean, I get a lot of sphere business as well because I'm on social media, so it's kind of a combination of everything. But I would say the biggest majority of our opportunities when it comes to seller leads are probably going to be like reviews with algorithms to kind of push you to the top. So we're like Veronica.
Okay, so this is the concept of association loops, right? I'm going to whip up my Miro as quickly as I humanly can here. I know for everyone watching this might seem a little bit boring at home. New board, create team board, just quickly. So this is what I like to call association loops, right? Association loops are ways that people define why they're actually doing business, the big reasoning behind why things are done, right? So what he just told you is like, hey, we do Instagram. Hey, we do Facebook. Hey, we do all of these other things, of all the things we do. That is the first chain in the association loop of, hey, he does that because he associates it with clients, and then he associates clients all the way, and I'm going to zoom out all the way down here to money, right? And there's obviously more chains in between here in these association loops. But the point is that by touching on this, we've been extremely shallow and we've only hit this point right here of, hey, Instagram, Facebook, It's just the deliverables, right? So what that means is not necessarily a bad thing, but it means that we're not going to be able to collect on a base level reasoning of why he's here in the first place, right? Because the money only goes down to this thing, which is his deep reason, like why he's in business. Maybe it's he wants to send his daughter to college, right? But because of that, we're not going to be able to build the emotional rapport because we're at the very top of the association loop. So we have to rely on him to go from Instagram to Facebook to clients to money to daughter, right? Instead of if we spent this phase building emotion, telling stories, we would be able to go, hey, I'm here because I don't really want to go to college. I'm a little bit of an introverted marketer. Use the 8 Mile effect to damage yourself, build trust, so that you can pull out his deep reason, so that you have an extremely high emotional caliber built out, so that when you pull that logic out, you go case study, boom, there's no reason for him not to buy again. And that would be the mindset behind that. Does that kind of like make sense at all?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Okay, so let's keep it.
Investment leader, she's like one of the first agents that pops up. They type in Orlando real estate agent. It's funny because no matter if somebody goes to Zillow, which the majority of people go to Zillow, or if they just go to Google, they're gonna run into our process. So kind of win-win. That's the
I just want to team on the Google ads.
No, we have our director of ops, Derek. He's like a freaking wizard when it comes to like the science, data science stuff. Yeah, he used a converting to a qualified opportunity. Over the course of 3 years, I learned inside of it. So I had more conversations and understood the lead sources probably more than anybody on the team outside our director of ops and our actual team leader. So I would say it's yeah, I mean, I hope that, I don't know if I answered your question, but
yeah, you did. So okay, so I mean, it seems like everything's going pretty well. So outside of just volume on the listing side of things, like, are you seeing a bottleneck anywhere other than, I mean, just volume? Because I mean, it sounds like everything is pretty dialed in.
Yeah, everything's good. That's why I was kind of putting this off. It wasn't to be rude or anything, but I was like, hey, let me hear him out, because I'm the type of person, man, I'm a workaholic. I don't really take vacations like that. Do weekend getaways here and there. If I do take a vacation, it's towards like the slower part of the year when it doesn't really affect my pockets with business. But I'm always open to more opportunities. For us, it's easier to convert seller leads because I would say 95% of the time I never have to physically meet these people in person. We use the clout of our team because of our
perfect. So you see how it worked there. When you use the line, and this is obviously for everyone watching, a little bit of context before we mentioned what is called a disqualification, potential disqualification. What that did is you pushed further down his association loop. You didn't quite get to his very deep reason, but you got pretty close, right? You were right about here when he said, hey, I'm a workaholic, I don't really take vacation. Like, that is core stuff about this guy. That is who he is. That is his identity, right? And it's a really good thing that you got out his truth of like, hey, the only reason why I've been putting this off is because things, going pretty good, And then I can imagine as you keep digging, you're going to pull something up in the very near future. So I'm going to keep playing.
Our reviews and our reputation and, go over some numbers, our strategies, give them a winning presentation over the phone. And they signed to a ball game just because I was curious to see just how you can help me get more seller opportunities. Even if it's, hey, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 a month, that's extra revenue in my business. And because of that time, I can scale it to where.
So volume and then.
So my read on this guy right now, from what I've heard, is he's trying to attack, right? His pain is that he's not at his goal. Right. So his pain is not necessarily that his business is failing. This guy is an eater, right? He's hungry. He wants to get after it. So his pain is that like, hey, maybe his goal is he wants to triple his revenue. He wants to get to 100K a month because he wants to achieve big. That is this guy's pain, right? So selling this guy, and I'm not saying you do this right now. I haven't watched enough of the call yet, but if we try and sell this guy something along the lines of, hey, you're going to make it so that you never have to worry about making rent again, he doesn't care, right? Because it's very clear that this guy is like, hey, things are already going, the ball's rolling, but this is going 50 miles per hour. I want to make it go 200 miles per hour. And I want to speed this thing. I want to blow up. I want to become a billionaire, right? That's the vibe I'm getting from this guy. So based on that, we know that deep down, this hardworking thing, this vacation thing is going to be a very strong emotional pain point, right? If we want to relate to this guy, if we want to build rapport with this guy, we know it has to be on a level, and we can use relatability of like, hey, I'm a workaholic too. Hey, I can do all this stuff. So what I'm looking for right now is this asset for you to tell your story. But I'm looking for an area here where this guy knows who you are now, right? Because building on all this stuff, if you were to bank on that and say like, hey, I don't take vacations at all either. I've never really even left the house. I'm just a marketing nerd, sit here, send outreach, he'd be like, perfect. This is the guy I want to work with, right? Because that's his goal. We can identify that that's who he wants to be based on what we've learned about him, right? And it's just context clues based on what he's given us. He's dished out enough value for us to really dig on it right now. We just missed the first opportunity. The first opportunity was right now, and we're going to call this the vacay objection or the vacay information point. We should have capitalized on the vacay information point. 100% we should have. Right now, we're going to keep seeing come up again and again. We can do it again here. I want to see if we go in and we say, hey, then, I'm super hard working too.
Hands, the better.
Yeah, which is why I'm focusing on seller leads specifically. So if you guys get more seller opportunities, that's nothing. I mean, I'm probably cranking out at least 3 to 5 CMAs a day because of the conversations I'm having. I'm not saying I can convert all of them, but I would say probably get 40 to 50% of them I convert. And the rest of them are either nurtures or they go with another agent. I'll follow up with them. And they fall in their face with the agent. They show that I come save the day for the most part. Not all the time, but that's typically how it works. Like, trust me, brother, my follow-up skills, just like yours, I'm an animal with it. So you guys give good seller leads. If there's me.
Best type of people to work with that actually care about.
Yeah. So you hear what he said there is very subtle. Because my follow-up skills, just like you, I'm jumping on that. I'm going, hey, I'm hungry too. I'm sitting here 12 hours a day. I'm working. I'm going hard every single day because that's what this guy's showing to you right now. he's showing very close to his objection, or like his core reason. I mean, on the end of the association loop, right? The reason why he's working so hard here is because maybe his deep reason is that he wants to be a billionaire. That sounds what this guy wants to be. Like, he wants to make a lot of money. That's what this guy wants to do.
Yeah.
So we have to understand that, and we have to say like, hey, there's so many points that this guy's giving away that we can tell our story here. We can capitalize and we can make this guy like us, regardless of whether what we do or not is going to work. And then as soon as we show the case study, he's gonna be like, oh my gosh, Mason's such a hard worker. He relates to me. He got him on follow-up. I love follow-ups too. This guy's super hard working. I'd love to work with him. Oh, I made Kathy, who's obviously not as hardworking as you, X amount of money. So why wouldn't I sign up? Right from that point, you can objection handle, but you can see how when you capitalize and you build story and you build emotion on the data points that he's giving you, this guy's going to like you a lot more. Because right now you relate to this guy. You're probably thinking in your head right now, like, hey, this guy's a cool guy. This guy's a good prospect. This guy's qualified. Right? Was that along the lines of what you're thinking at this point?
Yeah, definitely. I could tell he was confident and like definitely someone I would want to work with. It was just about leaning into the transition of talking about myself, which I didn't do much, and then also the transition from that kind of ruining the moment into service type of thing. So
yeah, and I'd like you to externalize that, right? Like, when you see someone is qualified, man, I love working with people like you. I got Kathy and like we're getting her this result, but like she's not that hardworking. She doesn't follow up the leads. Like, if you're going to be following up with the leads, it's going to be good. And using stuff like that, externalizing what you're thinking here, right? Because that's going to allow you to build rapport. That's going to share your story. And again, like if you were to talk about how hardworking you are right now, I guarantee this is a close, right? Just from what I'm seeing here alone.
what's getting handed to them, and don't take it for granted. So.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
But yeah, man. I mean, everything seems pretty good. What we'll do is I'll go ahead and run over the service,
Okay.
run over the pricing structure, the model, and everything, and then feel free to cut me off if you need to ask any questions to understand everything that I'm saying, and then just be upfront with me, and then we'll
Nitpick. I have a nitpick here. So there's trigger words that you should never use, you should really try and avoid when you're selling, right? Those are terms like, I want you to take a risk with me. I need you to believe me here. What you said there, if you need to cut me off. These all imply anything related to going against you, right? These are all opposition, all conflict words is what I like to call them, right? These are all conflict words in the sense of, if somebody or you're to use them, it means that like, hey, we're really not on the same side of the table here. Instead of being together and being like two arrows going with each other, it's like, hey, this is one arrow, and then there's the red arrow opposing them. And that's what that feels like when you use a conflict word like that. And then that's what's in the middle, right? It's like, hey, there's not that trust. And again, what our goal is, we're trying to max out this trust meter. Like, we're trying to make this guy love us, right? And then as soon as he makes us like loves us, he likes us, like knows what we do, and he trusts us, all we have to do is say like, hey, here's a case study, and there's no reason for him not to buy. So that is the only thing I'd say there. It's a nitpick, but it can take you a long way.
we'll go from there. Does that sound good?
Yeah, sounds good, man.
Awesome, man. So what we're going to do is, I heard you didn't mention Facebook ads. So what we actually do is we generate all of our top of the funnel leads through Facebook.
So back to the framework. I'm going to ask you a question. Does this sound like a conversation? Like this whole overall call?
Kind of towards the beginning more so, but as we lean into the service, it's kind of grown further apart.
Yeah. And you can see, like, if we go back to this example, like that doesn't feel like you're on the same side of the table as him. Right? Like, I can imagine it feels like, hey, you're trying to sell him, you're trying to justify, you're the one asking him questions. Right?
Yeah.
The reason why I like to use the words we so much, right? Maybe I should do it on our call right now. I should say, what we're trying to do, not what you're trying to do, because I want to get on the same side of the table as you so that you and I can look here together to find the best direction, right? It's not that, hey, opposing, I'm trying to point you to the best direction. It's, what should we do? Hey, where should we go? Hey, what is the best move? Like, you shouldn't be opposing him in the sense of, I'm interrogating you. It's, I'm trying to learn more about you. So together, we on the same side of the table can make a qualified decision about what the next best step is.
Is there a reason you guys aren't doing Facebook ads? Bad history?
Yeah, we're doing Facebook ads. We do it more through an organic source through our website. So we target it through. So what we do is, because we got emails, there's a lot of them linked to the Facebook accounts. We basically are able to target specific, because we use tags as far as updating the whole fan page with Facebook and all that extra stuff.
Yep, Facebook does better. So it's definitely an interesting space with the way Facebook and Instagram's connected, and the advertising, just all the settings. You seem to know a decent amount.
Let me ask you this.
Okay. That is called fake rapport. right there. It seems like you know all the settings, seems like you know all the ads, and like, hey, maybe I took it out of context based on what I saw, but that comment doesn't contribute to anything, right? It doesn't contribute to the logic meter, doesn't contribute to the emotional meter, right? Anyone can say that. Everyone says, hey, your Instagram page looks great, right? Whereas if you go like, hey, I deal with Kathy. Kathy doesn't know anything about Facebook. Personal relation right there, right? Like you can see the difference of how one builds emotion and how one's just like a shallow compliment. Anyone can throw it out.
Yeah.
Because the only reason why I never integrated them both is there's certain things I would post on Instagram that I probably wouldn't post on Facebook just because who's actually following me, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
As far as keeping it like this professional. So is there a way if I link it and I'm posting something on IG that I can, not post it on, like when it comes to business stuff, I don't care, I'll post it on both. I'm just talking about like my personal side. That's what I'm concerned about, linking them and then
Okay. The way I would,
Gotcha. Okay.
so you answer that question at face value. When someone gives you a question that's off topic like that, you'd ideally want to answer it by solving their underlying problem. So what I mean by that is that guy asked you, hey, if I post it, like, is it going to go and mess up my brand if I post it and all these ads and everything everywhere? You're like, hey, usually, and I would tell the story. Let's go back to Kathy. We don't like Kathy. It's like, when Kathy first started, she was like super worried about having her brand mess up, having all these things happen. And what we did for her is so and so and so to resolve the problem. Right? Because that way you're not just the objective customer service guy, right? You can just go to Facebook support, but you again are building on that personal meter. So a lot of the answers to these questions, I want you to take the ability to answer them and build your emotion meter, right? Because there's a lot of fluff here, right? You're answering these questions, but it doesn't make him like you anymore. It doesn't increase the likelihood of closing, right? It's just blank space. So what you want to do is the best way to do that is to convey emotion. Well, what's the best way to convey emotion? It's through a story. And that's why you tell the story of Kathy, story of your bad clients. And that is how you get this guy over the edge, along with that really big missed home run opportunity of, hey, I'm a hard worker too. I don't take days off. Christmas, where was I? I was at my desk. And you can do all these things to really hit this one out of the park.
But yeah,
so what are you guys offering? So you're just basically offering ads on IG, so on Facebook?
Yeah. So, but the main thing is, so we started doing that, right? So we were generating all of our top of the funnel leads on Facebook, and getting a lot of eyeballs. It's a lot of leads. But the biggest problem we were seeing, which you probably saw yourself with, being in the field and understanding it, is people understand how to get to the point where.
So you see how there's like the fake rapport there, like, you're in the field, you probably understand this. That's a story right there. It's like, hey, I was working with Phil. And what happened with Phil is like Phil thought he was pretty knowledgeable. Turns out Phil wasn't that knowledgeable. We ran into all these issues and this is how we solved it, right? So you play to your stat bar of emotion and keep relating back to that because he's going to be able to trust you so much more, right? Especially, and I'm going to go over this, the 8 Mile damaging admission effect, right? Eminem, 8 Mile, end of the movie, hyped up the whole movie. He's practicing his raps. He's getting ready. He's facing this black guy. This black guy, bigger audience, bigger guy, just better rapper, losing, and is better than Eminem in every single way possible. Right? And the only reason why Eminem gets up there and he wins is because when he starts, instead of saying, hey, I'm better than you, I'm better and better and better, or the equivalent here, which is like, this, that, this, and all this fake rapport, he goes, hey, I am white trash. Hey, I grew up in a trailer park. He goes along this whole story about all these things that happened to him. And because he actually did that, there's so much trust when he goes and says, hey, I actually saw success. I actually saw this thing. And it builds up that stat meter of trust that I was talking about, so that when you follow up with the logic, it means so much more. And that is like the big thing that I'm observing here.
Where they have to enter in their information and they can just lie. So we can ask 3, 4, 5 questions on a lead form, and people realize if they say, yes, I'm selling now in 3 months,
Exactly.
yes, my motivation is high, they know they're just going to be able to get through to the form and enter in their information, right? So we have a big problem.
Is it okay if I skip to the pitch? Like, I think a lot of this is just like, hey, we have to play to our stat bar based on like what I'm hearing right now.
Yeah, it's just kind of a lot of filler conversation. He just asked a bunch of service questions.
Yeah.
A bit kind of towards like the pitch.
So like if someone does that, like that's your time to shine. Like I want you to take that. I want you to run with it, right? Because just because they asked you a service delivery question doesn't mean that you can't use it as an opportunity here. Instead of being like the customer support FAQ page, you want to go, hey, and like use it as a way to tell every case study, right? Good or bad. Because if it's a bad case study, it's 8 Mile, and then you build trust, right? And by this phase, the pitch call, like getting around in and around this area, this is where we'd want to like really have the rapport and trust built up. And I see we've got a new challenger at around this phase. So this is the business partner, I assume?
No, he just logged in on his phone.
Oh, logged in on his phone. Okay, perfect. So same guy. My phone call.
Yeah.
I apologize. Looking at this, so yeah, this is just service. About when does the pitch happen? Say about 30 minutes or so?
Yeah, yeah,
I'd say
it's
it's a
kind
bad
of
month 3. So that means if I got 3 on a bad month, I would maybe convert 1. Um, but I'm thinking if I can convert just 1, it would at least pay for the 9 cent setup fee, but I wouldn't make too much of a spread because we got company team splits and stuff like that. For this to make sense, I would have to be converting at least like 2 leads a month for it to be worth me paying that 9 cent a month, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
and that's
and
another
we,
question.
yeah, and
Go
we
ahead.
operate on a month-to-month contract. So as you know,
Gotcha.
real estate isn't a get rich quick scheme, but we have a lot of people that don't want to.
Oh, is it back?
We're like 25, maybe.
25. Oh, okay.
Us talking, it's not our team talking to them, it's the professional call center. So
Okay.
that's how we go around
So,
that.
okay, you're probably gonna answer this question. No, I believe you, bro. You seem like a pretty trustworthy dude. So you don't have to go over like the stats and everything. And you pretty much you hit it right on the nail, man. It's like you're not getting paid if we're not getting paid. So it's like your best interest is to make sure we get good leads that we convert. So,
Oh my gosh, you still did it. So here we go. This guy's trust meter is high, right? Regardless of the fact that we didn't build thing, like, hey, I trust, like he said it explicitly, right? So then why didn't he buy? Right? It's like he trusts our logic, right? He trusts that we know what we're doing. He trusts that. Right? He just explicitly said it. So the only reason why I wouldn't buy is the emotional driver. Like just like based on what I've seen so
obviously,
far,
you guys
like,
look good and you can give us far.
like trust. We showed him the case that he's indoctrinated. So why else wouldn't he buy? Right? It's just the emotional driver.
Opportunities we can get you more business. So I get it. I'm all about good business, man. Just making sure we're being transparent and genuine with each other. Like, hey, that's really the goal. Is for us all to make money.
Exactly, yeah.
All right, so I got the setup fee, and then I'm sorry, you said that was pretty much good for. I apologize, I didn't catch that part. How long is that setup fee for?
Yeah, so the setup fee is monthly, and then
Monthly,
so it's
okay.
like the 510 to the ads monthly, and then that's just gonna be on your Facebook account. So
How many leads are you guaranteeing to get out of this or setups? I guess you could say.
it's gonna be around 4.
Okay. So when you're making a pitch, I want you to imagine that you are a doctor here. Just for complete separate situation, forget what I said about the pitch. We got a patient. This guy is coming in and he's got an issue with his head. That's all we know. In order to properly diagnose what's going to happen and help this guy out, we're not necessarily going to just say like, hey, usually when someone has a head problem, we just like give them Tylenol and just take Tylenol. Right? If we really want to have this person ready, we're gonna go like, oh, okay. Okay, so you're having a problem in the left side, the back side of your head. Okay, well, that makes it sound like a migraine. Well, here's the migraine medicine we use. Right? Like we've learned from this guy, this is what he wants. He wants a lot of money, right? He already has things going for him. So his pain point is not, hey, I want to make rent. Hey, I want to, support my family. It's, hey, I want to just blow this thing up. I want to make a lot of money. I want to drive a Lambo and I want to, probably prove all the people that doubted me wrong. I assume that's more along the lines of what this guy's going after based on what I've had so far. So the belief of that is now when we're trying to sell this guy, we're not positioning the offer as here are the deliverables. It's like, hey, I'm going to get you this goal, but we didn't extract the goal out of him, right? We never extracted what he actually wanted. He alluded to it saying, hey, vacay. I don't work on vacations. I'm just going hard all the time, but we didn't actually articulate it. And because of that, it's very hard to prescribe him. It's like a guy walking into a doctor's office. He's in pain, but you have no clue where. And now you have to give him medicine, right? It's like you don't know what to do because you don't know what's going on. So I'd really like to have his goal articulated because we have an idea of what it's along the lines of. You make assumptions, but let's say he's at $20,000 a month and he wants to get to 50. He wants to get to $100,000 a month. That's his goal. When we sell him now, it's not, hey, bro, like, I'm going to get you the deliverables. Hey, like, how many leads are you guaranteeing? You can now sell the end destination. Okay, I'm going to get you to 100K a month, right? It might not be the first month, might not be the second month, but like 6 months from now, 100K a month. And that's what we're going to go after, right? When someone asks in the RC First Client Challenge, hey, what are you going to get? Every time I respond, you're going to get your first client. I don't say like, hey, we have 3 coaching calls a week. Hey, we have all this stuff. It's like, you're going to get your first client, dude. That's it. Right. And through doing that, what happens is when I connect to their end destination result, they're deep and low on the association loop over here. It means something to them, right? Because you can show him, like you showed him, hey, I'm good at what I do. Hey, I got leads. Here's a case study. But he's not deeply associating that with his deep personality, which we've learned is, hey, I don't take vacations. Hey, I'm a hard worker. Hey, I probably want to make $100,000 a month. Like that's who this guy is. But we haven't spoken to that. All we've spoken to is the top of this association loop. So he sold, right? This could have been a lay down sale, but we're only speaking to a very shallow point of his actual personality.
Your setup fee divided by $4 to $6, and so if I just did the average of 5,
This is
90s.
how many leads the call center?
and like through answering these questions, all you're doing is justifying this to be incredibly logical, right? Like again, the only reason I'll break it down. The only reason he cares about leads is because he associates leads with listings. He associates listings with GCI. He associates GCI with money in his bank account. He associates money in his bank account with proving his girlfriend wrong after she dumped him. That's our guess here, right? That is what this guy associates with. So when we only speak to the top part of like, how many leads am I going to get? We don't have the deep resonation to move this guy manually, right? He has to do the moving for him. But if we have and take it into our power to say, hey, I'm going to speak to your deepest and darkest, then we have the power to emotionally move this person. But right now we can only logically move them. And even the breakdown of that, like you have a calculator pulled up, breaking down how many leads that are doing the math. It shouldn't be like that, right? Just be like, hey, we're going to get you to a point where you can pull up in a Huracan on your girlfriend and a new boyfriend. And he's going to be short, right? Like that. And like that type of stuff is what pulls somebody out. And then past that point, we've already sold them like that. That's when you use logic. But this guy has no emotional drivers as to why it needs to be you, right? Anybody can do this. Anybody with a case study can do what you've done so far. But not everybody with a case study. The guy in Bali who works 2 hours a day in the opposite time zone is a pain that doesn't respond to messages. He doesn't have that same I don't work holidays mentality. You do. So you have to build on that. You have to express that.
I was going to call.
Oh, okay.
So the top of the funnel leads that are going to be generated should be anywhere between 90 to 110 with a 510 ad budget if you wanted to go higher.
Yeah, and
then,
we just spend time like
But
justifying, explaining.
Give us an option. Another
we
question.
we
Go ahead.
operate on a month-to-month contract. So as
And
you know,
then and is this just all like nuances of service again, like answering questions like a customer FAQ page of what your actual service is, but not really building on it with a story or any case studies? Is that like what the rest of the call is? Because if so, I want to take the time at the end, just like make sure that like you pull out the knowledge from this. So based on like everything we've gone through so far, like what are the big things that you've seen that like you could do better in this call? And once you've got it, I'm going to go like top bottom of like everything I noticed one more time.
So I took some notes here. So the first things I got is find his burning building. So we didn't quite get the burning building extracted out of his real reason why. And just noticing more about the prospect. Like right off the rip, you mentioned the fact that him saying that he was a hard worker, I could have used as leverage. In the moment, I wasn't even thinking about that. So it's like understanding those points that you can use as leverage to relate. And that was my second point, is like relate and then exaggerate on like maybe client relations that are like similar. Like if Kathy can do it, like you mentioned, you can too, relating to like clients and overusing case studies and stories. Making sure I'm not hitting on any trigger words. and then being on his team. Like we want to get you here. So
yeah, his side of the table.
And act like, you know, you're working with him to make the best possible decision for him. You're not persuading him to make a decision.
Correct. Okay. So yeah, I think that is like the very key points here. The first thing I noticed, and I like went over it again, but I'm going to repeat it, of like, I quickly picked up on the fact like this guy gave away his pain point to you. A lot of the times you have to dig for that. He threw it out there, right? And it's most likely, if I had to take a guess, because I did this all the time, I am listening to him for the sake of responding. I'm listening to him for the sake of going, check, okay, he has this amount of money, check, and then ask the next question, right? But because you're doing that, because you have like a script pulled up, because you're doing all these things, you missed it, right? You missed him saying that one thing that would have changed the whole trajectory of the call. The next thing I noticed in relation to that is once you have that deep motivation, you didn't pull out his actual goal, right? Like, yeah, we can get the association loop, hey, he's a hard work, Well, like, tell me more about that, right? After, like, that's the question I would ask. Like, hey, I don't work holidays today. Oh, well, like, tell me more about like why you're working so hard. Like, what's your actual goal here, bud? And then that's where you get that deep goal. And then once you get that deep goal and you know it's low on the association loop, you're like, well, why do you want to make all this money? And then that's the deepest. Like that is the type of thing that will get them like walking miles for you, going everywhere, right? Because there's such an emotional attachment to that leads to him working 12 hours a day. And if you can pull that out and then logically justify it after, there's no reason why. And especially the relatability that you already existingly have with him would have been so huge in just moving this guy, right? Because this guy was already sold to some extent, on what's going on, right? He has a lot of motivation to move forward with this. It was the fact that whether or not it's you, he's going to do this, right? And on this thing, all I've noticed is that we didn't justify why it should be us, right? We sold him like extremely well on why he needs to do it, but like, why Mason? Why is Mason better than everyone? And then the thing about bringing up client case studies, that is all about relating personally, right? So whenever you have the conversation, the first thing I actually, like the actual first thing I noticed, well, you said like, hey, well, let's dive into the call. Usually these calls are cut that out. It's start it. Hey, how's it going, man? And from that point, it flows naturally, right? And every time he answers a question, if you want to make it seem natural, personal relation, next question, right? So when he went, let me look back to the call. How did the start of the call go? When he went, he's a hard worker, right? That very big pivotal point. You could have gone like, oh, you know, this Christmas I didn't work either. I'm really doing 12-hour days because I really want to hit X goal. I really want to hit 10K a month with my agency. I really want to hit 10K a month so I don't have to go to college, right? That's your deep reason, right? So then when you do that, you're like, hey, what's yours? And within not even 5 minutes of this call, you're already getting this guy to like really deep parts of it so that when you bring up the service, it's going to have a lot of trust. And then the thing of doing that while also bringing up client results or stories as much as possible, right? I just use the example of client stories because this guy has a lot of service delivery questions. Doesn't have to be at all, right? If this guy wants to talk about sports, tell stories. Hey, you know, that I grew up playing hockey, oh, okay. Well, you know, like I never played hockey growing up. I can barely skate. I played soccer, but it was that same sense of like, you know, working in a team and like really seeing that. And for a time, you know, the coach actually shattered my confidence. I got kicked out. Personal relation, 8 Mile, trust meter is going up, right? So then we get that trust meter up, we can then convert that trust meter into logic, which is going to lead to interest. When we get the interest, and all we have to do is mediate and negotiate on the price, which is what we did at the very end when he brought up the price and we had the calculator on the phone. That should have been like the last thing we did, right? Should have been that and then objection handles. The pitch should have been emotional. And then after that, it could have been mediating out the rest with logic. And that's really what I got. And the buzzword thing was small. You'll pick up on that over time.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely like running over it and being able to just pinpoint and nitpick the problems is definitely like a eye opener and just understanding, you know, like what you need to say and what you need to do throughout the meeting. So
yeah. And for the people listening in, I hope you found this valuable because it is like not easy to do, right? I went through this pain of like, I had to do 8 to 10 sales calls a day for this company when I didn't really know sales. Right? And because of that, I made all these mistakes, right? Like I am so emotional about some of these things, like jumping around earlier, because these were the same issues that I made, right? Even to a worse extent, a lot of the time, especially like the start part, I'd go like, hey, you know, at the end of this call, I'm expecting a yes or a no if you want to get out of here. Doesn't work, right? And it doesn't work in the sense if you're trying to emotionally move people, right? You can have all the logical reasoning in the world, but it means that you're only going to move somebody contingent on the fact that they're in the buying window and you present the best logical offer, right? But we have to understand that as a beginner, there are guys out there with hundreds of case studies and making 100K a month, servicing however many clients, right? So those people are objectively better at what they do than us, regardless of where we put our ego. So understanding that the only other variable which we can control to move a prospect towards us, because awareness, like the awareness is there, right? They can go to a bigger agency if they want. It's not hard to find. So the only metric that we have is the emotional mover that we can do better than them somehow because we're the underdog. And that's how we have to leverage our emotion. So that is the summary. I hope you found this valuable, Mason, mostly. And then anyone listening in, if you made it this far, you're a real one. And I'll see you guys in the next video.